Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Kulturmittler innen, the IFA podcast on foreign cultural policy. My name is Amira El Al and I'm very glad you're joining me again for this episode. The 60th edition of the Venice Biennale started on April 20th and is curated this year by Adriano Pedrosa. 330 artists from 86 countries are represented, and the title of this year's edition is Foreigners Everywhere. One of the participating artists is Isaac Chong Wai. The Hong Kong-born, Berlin-based artist combines performance, video, installation, painting, and photography in his works. His works are part of the collections of Hamburger Bahnhof, Nationalgalerie der Gegenwart in Berlin, Cadist in Paris and San Francisco, and the Berger Collection in Hong Kong. His artworks have been shown at the 22nd Biennial of Video Brasil in Sao Paulo, the Bundeskunsthalle Bonn, and the IFA Galerie in Berlin. Isaac Chong Wai, welcome to die KulturmittlerInnen.
Thank you so much. Very happy to be here with you.
I'm very happy to have you with us. The Venice Biennale is one of the most important and prestigious biennials in the art world. What role does the invitation play for you as an artist and your work?
I was very excited to be invited for the Venice Biennale. As you said, it's a very important biennial in the art world. I would say the role is more like having a chance to present a work to audience all over the world. And also I was given a very beautiful space in the Arsenale, really big with 300 square meters. So that was a very exciting news when I got the invitation. And of course, working with the space and with the curator, definitely does shape my work.
When and how did you find out that you were invited?
So it was the curator, Adriano Pedrosa. He wrote me an email and asked me for the portfolio, and we then also met up, and then I got invited. So I was very happy about having this opportunity.
Of course. You already said that, it's a big chance to present work to people from all over the world. But what makes the Venice Biennial so special, especially compared to other biennials? I mean, you've already been in Video Brasil, so maybe you can give us a little insight on that.
It might be more like a personal point of view. For me, the special thing is it feels like I'm traveling through times. When I say it, it's because when I'm in Venice, I got to meet so many different people, many faces that I have seen in the past in different projects. And then I'm also working with very international team and people. So it was an experience feeling how come everyone is here? It's kind of like a celebration that makes it very special to me and very touching too, actually, to see many people that I've worked with and people that are also very interested in the work and how it catches the audience.
I'm sure it's a very special atmosphere also in Venice with all these people from all around the world. Maybe let's talk a bit about how you approached your piece that you are now presenting in Arsenale, which is amazing. And you said 300 square meters. I mean, that's fantastic. Did you know directly which ideas you wanted to present, or was it a process together with the curatorial team of the biennial, or how does this work? Did you know exactly which approach you want to go?
It's very much I said exciting, but also very stressful. A lot going on, and it's not a very simple process. It's a lot of discussion, and we try to figure out how it can connect to the audience, and in what kind of format, in what kind of material, and how big it is, and how it's one step and then another step. So every single decision, it was great to have the biennial team. I mean, especially curator Adriano Pedrosa, we have been just discussing a lot, which work and how do I shape the work, because in the very end, the projects that I developed this time is connecting to work that I produced in 2021, but I developed it for Venice to have kind of combining 2021 and 2024, these 2 years of work together for the Venice Biennale. Maybe I also should talk about the project a bit. Like the project is called Falling Reversely. As I mentioned, that it started from 2021. It was very much of like it has a lot to do with the experience that me and many of my friends or people that I know who have encountered physical assault or verbal assaults in public spaces, and how we came together and discuss and like how to protect ourselves. And at the same time, I then developed a work which are working on how we can reverse the movement of falling, because most of the time when people got attacked, we fall on the street, and how like normally we cannot reverse it, but how we can reverse it in the form of arts. So like the whole process is like there is this particular projects that I started and then discussing with the team and to develop it. And in Venice Biennale this time, it's being presented as a 7-channel video installation and live performances.
Okay, exactly. That is interesting because I would like to know if you could like maybe take us into the space. Like for those who will not have the chance to go to Venice, maybe you can explain the concept of the artwork and what do we see? Like what does the visitor experience when it goes like into this 300 square meter space? It sounds huge. So you said it's an installation and video, 7 channels installation in Falling Reversely. Maybe take us there and show us what we see.
Sure. So Arsenale is like this huge hall. And when you enter my installation, you see the columns of the architectural features of the building. And you also see 7 screens which are scattered in the space. Some are in the corner, some might be placed next to our staircase, and some are more closer to the passage where the audience are passing through. And sometimes in the video installation, you see all the screens are on, and then you see a group of performers forming a circle and falling at the same time. When they fall on the ground, all the posture on the ground are the same. It's like how we are practicing the falling so that when we're on the ground, we have all this, everyone has the same posture. When I'm producing this video, I also intentionally edited the video in a way that sometimes you see that the performers, when we perform, we try to reverse the movement of falling. I mean, this is like live, like when we are recording it, we are trying to reverse it. But at the same time, when I'm editing it, sometimes I rewind the footages too. So it's a bit like when you play DVD or like video, then you can click a rewind button, then it kinds of the movement is going backward. But then there are so many different parts in the video installations. Sometimes you also see only just one screen is on. Let's say next to the staircase, there's one screen you see performers, they are performing how to be, not how, but like performing being attacked. As if like you don't see the perpetrator, but you see that the performer is being attacked through bodily movement, but the performer is also using the body to reverse back the attack. Like you get punched, but then your body reverses it back. And in this setting, in the 7-channel video installation, sometimes you will hear the sound from a corner, like one video is on for 2 seconds, another video is on for another. So it's kind of like they're on and off in different screens. I remember also discussing with the curator about when we are thinking about like what happens in public spaces. Sometimes it's like very sudden and it can happen anywhere. It can happen in a corner. It can happen in front of your eyes. For me, with some of my personal experience, it also like when violence comes, it also comes very fast. it's like it's an interaction could be just very short and things happen. Yeah.
So is this, I mean, way of, doing this research, doing these installations and showing this artwork a way of taking back power also? I mean, you said that these are acts of violence that are committed against queer people and Asian migrant communities, and you have experienced this, your friends have experienced this. So is this a way of kind of gaining back power or being the one who writes the narrative? What does it mean to you personally to do this kind of work?
I would say that it's very much of a collective response to the systemic violence that like the communities are experiencing in everyday life. I would also see it as a form of resistance that no one can really reverse an attack. And like that's also how I feel it when I experience it or when I know of it or if I see it from video. I know that I cannot reverse it back. But by doing so in the form of art, somehow it's like it could be my way of resisting, like an imagination, how it could be possible when it comes to that. Because many, like when people get attacked or like assaulted, sometimes not even just about physical attack, it's also like could be just a verbally or like what kind of damage is actually is done on people's body. Not necessarily it has to be very visible. But then somehow like in the form of art, I can imagine like a way that could kind of work against it or to create another kind of like an impossible movement or impossible images that in a way I long for. And to, of course, not just about the resistance, but at the same time, it's also this feeling that sometimes I feel powerless, that I can't do anything because everyone is kind of expecting that it would happen. It's kind of like very much of a norm that, oh, it's normal, it would just happen like this. So just take that. And yeah.
Can you maybe tell me what role the audience plays in this piece? Like, do they represent silent bystanders or are they kind of involved? Or what is their role you want them to take in this?
With that, I could talk a bit more about the live performance, actually. Like, we perform also like live when all the screens are frozen. There's an empty room in the space, and there's live performance. I was working with 11 performers, including myself. And there are lots of audience, like we're surrounded by audience. Sometimes they just pass by. It's not like a theater play, like you can just go if you have something to, if you just bump into our performance or you come for the performance and stay for the whole time. For me, I think it's more like how to connect with the audience, like it could be emotionally. Actually, during the performance, quite some audience, they cried. Some were crying a bit too much, so they had to leave.
Wow.
And I think some performers also cried during the performance, but like we are trying to hold ourselves. So when you mentioned about the word silence, we were silent actually, but we had so much emotion, like a lot going on there. So like this is very much how the connection can be formed. When we talk about the idea of bystander or like a random stranger, or the topic of this foreigners everywhere, the role of a bystander, and it's like how you can connect to people or like to, let's say, we don't know the audience there, but we connect with them or they connect with us. I think this connection will make an impact or maybe something that could change through this impact.
Absolutely. It sounds wonderful. I wish I could go and see it.
We'll still do it.
Good. So I have a chance to catch you in Venice. Wonderful. Yeah. But since you just mentioned the title of this year's biennial again, Foreigners Everywhere, what does the concept of foreignness mean to you and maybe also for your art? I mean, does it resonate with your art?
The word foreigners,
or foreignness, being foreign somewhere. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I think it goes back to my, let's say, maybe the first time coming to Europe and everyone say that you're a foreigner, you're a tourist, or like me being in Hong Kong as a someone who's queer, then they would think that this is foreign to them. Well, I mean, like in Hong Kong, it depends on who I'm meeting. They're also very accepting friends and people in the community. But more like when I grew up, that more like the system there is still, I feel like a foreigner, and then coming to Europe and people would think that I'm a foreigner. But in general, I think for this time, Falling Firstly, as well as the experience in the exhibition Foreigners Everywhere, for me, it's very much like it's a celebration that we can all come together and celebrate. Like I mentioned in the very first meeting, friends from everywhere. Like it can be like a project I did 10 years ago, or like 5 years ago, 8 years ago, that we never met again, that we met in Venice. And it's very much for me like a celebration. But at the same time, there are also struggles or difficulties that one would encounter, such as the work that I presented with Falling Reversely, which is pointing at more the violence in public spaces. So it's both like the celebration and the struggle.
Well, like life, always has both, I guess, as well. You work interdisciplinary. I said that in the beginning, between performance and video, installation, photography, and drawing, as mediators to investigate contemporary global phenomena. Why is this way of incorporating different media important to you?
I think it has a lot to do with my backgrounds or my studies too. Like I studied visual arts in Hong Kong, and where I think we were working on always like we kind of know everything. Like we do everything. I did painting, drawing, installation, performance. There's so many courses like that. And when I studied in Germany at the Bauhaus University, I was with my professor was Danica Dakic, where we were focusing on public arts. And then we were so free to do like use different mediums. Sometimes I was using maybe a text-based work, or like a sculpture or performance and different things. So my background of like studies definitely have a big impact. But for me, I think the important thing is I see performativity not only through the bodily movement, it's also through different mediums, such as how, like, let's say when we are looking into I'm now looking into now it's a glass like in front of me, then there is a way that I know how to hold this glass. I know how to use this glass. I know where this glass should belong, where this glass should be put in the studio. But then I often question why. Like, why do we have this like connection between the body and objects that we already know and we don't question it? And how art somehow here would be a way to imagine something different or new. And at the same time, I think it's very much that people love putting artists into, like, I don't know, like one thing. It's like, okay, you like boxes that, I was in so many different boxes because as you said, I'm doing so many different mediums. Like, artist, you are a performance artist, you are a media artist, you are you're a photographer, you are a painter, you're a choreographer. I think it's when it comes to also, again, this idea of the exhibition this time, as well as the work, is very much, or even the idea of queerness is very much of like trying not to have just one box or one definition and to limit the art itself too. I find it sometimes also could be limiting as well. And yeah, that's why it could be like a queering practice in a way. But that's like very much of like so many different mediums, and it always depends on the idea, like what would fit the idea.
Very interesting. We are witnessing very turbulent times worldwide, and you already mentioned violence that you are experiencing. But what role can art play in times of crisis, do you think?
It is always a very difficult question, and it's also a question that I'm still thinking about. To be honest, I won't say that there is like an answer to that, or if I would ever find an answer. I could only talk about myself, maybe. But I remember in 2015 when I was assaulted in public spaces, and for me, it was just that I had to do art or I had to do something. And or I had to use everyone use different ways. Some people, they use music to express their feelings and emotions. For me, I was using maybe photos, performance, or like drawings to deal with, to regulate myself in a way. And definitely, this is very much in the personal scope. But at the same time, when also dealing with, let's say, horrible events like political crises and like the role of art is, I think, is different for everyone. Like for me, it would be like something is only possible in arts, and by imagining like this reality that is no longer possible or could never be possible in our world, that could be a way to find. I often try to avoid the word solutions, but solutions could be formed sometimes because we have imaginations too. So I think the role of art is very much about the imagination in difficult times.
Yes, it's a beautiful way to look at it. And that brings me actually to your home country or your hometown, Hong Kong, where, because you said some things are only possible in art, which I find interesting. In the 2019-2020 protests in Hong Kong, activists and artists who were taking part in these protests used artwork and painting and music and other forms of artistic expression as a tactic to help spread awareness about the events that happened in the city. Could you tell us what role art and aesthetics play in Hong Kong's civil society, like especially in times of crises, political crisis? How important are they? And, this could be also maybe put into other countries, but Hong Kong, so...
So, like, when it comes to protests and language of arts, like how they're connected, I would say they are, as you mentioned, that many people, they have used different tactics, including, let's say, umbrella or the color of yellow, and to find, like, to use symbols and as a way to spread information or to use gesture. And I found it somehow like what I found very interesting when it comes to all these forms of, it could be color, it could be body, posture, gesture, movement, and they are repeating throughout history, like in different times and in different places. Like, as you also mentioned, that there are also other countries. It's like how all these movements or gestures, they become a global language or global vocabularies. Yeah, of course. So like when it comes to the color of yellow in Hong Kong, that is different, let's say, from other protests in other country, or like the yellow color, let's say, in the Yellow Fest, for example, in Paris, or like there are different connotations, like how people could identify with certain beliefs, and as well as the, like, it could be the form of art or the color. I also find it important, like, to have the shared language and how we actually speak the same language in a way. Not like spoken words, but it could be through color, it could be through the same posture of raising a protest sign. Yeah, so this would be how how I see it.
It's very interesting because you said like this global vocabulary and a shared language. I guess art is a shared language because it is something that is universally understood. And we don't have to speak the same language in order to be able to, be touched by an artwork or the same artwork. So I find it very interesting that you say that. You're working both in Hong Kong and Germany. Do you perceive differences in like the civil society and also the way people, maybe do people react differently to your art depending on where you are?
As you mentioned about this idea of how everyone could understand, or not necessarily understand, but like connect with the artwork without even prior knowledge. Sometimes it's very interesting, or the power of art in artwork is also that it's so open to different interpretations, and people are bringing their context. It could be like a political context, it could be a local context, it could be a personal context. And when they see an artwork of mine, like when I'm in Hong Kong, and it's a different context, it's a different, like I have different friends there, and or historically or culturally, and how like an artwork is being placed there. Sometimes like audience would sometimes react to it very differently than I thought, for example, or than in Germany. Like, for example, like in 2023, I was working at the Museum Schloss Neuland, and where you find one of the biggest, I think it's the biggest, if I'm not wrong, the biggest collection of Joseph Beuys' early works. And there I did a work where I was like standing next to a south stone, and then I'm adjusting my height and to align with the stone, and slowly with different stones, they have different heights. I reference one of Boy's famous work called a title 7,000 Oaks, and dealing with the idea of like the growth of the body, the growth of the tree, and the unchanging, kind of like the idea of unchange in a stone, like a monument. And when I show this in Museum Schloss Neuland, it's very much different when I show it in Hong Kong. Like people will see it very differently but they're also in the end something very close to. It's like, as you said, it's life. It's both. Like people could also see the same thing but differently.
But yeah, of course. But then you have in a different country also a different artistic background, and so of course people in Germany will be much more close to maybe Joseph Beuys than maybe in Hong Kong. So that's also like you come and you see whatever you see in an art. You come with the baggage, of artistic knowledge or language you learned while growing up. I guess it's part of it,
Yeah.
But it's very interesting. In Venice, well, let's come back to where we started. The important themes of the biennial are migration, exile, and experiences of foreignness. And we talked about this before. But what does the concept of origin or nation mean for you and for your work?
I find it very interesting when it comes to the idea of origin, because I never really know how far we can reach. Like when it comes to where is the origin? Is it like yesterday? Is it like 10 years ago, or 100 years ago, or 1,000, 2,000? Like this, like origin. I would say that it's very much like throughout our conversation, we often have seen this idea of like this both sides. Like when it comes to the idea of nation and origin, I would say that it's important that when people recognized, because of course, I talk about how difficult it is when it comes to the origin. There could be like different ancestors, and like it's always very difficult just to find one word and then, oh, this is the origin. And we always look for that weird singularity that doesn't make sense. But then the nations is very much also like there are people who wants to be recognized, like a need to recognize the, let's say, existence of people or their origins or nations. But at the same time, it's also can be problematic sometimes when things are only divided into boxes that we have discussed already, like this one box and two boxes. So that's why it's very much of these two things. Like there are people like need to be recognized, otherwise they will be erased. Like, otherwise, we don't even know that people are there. But at the same time, we also need to be realistic about all this idea of how far we can reach when it comes to our region or the idea of national boxes. Yeah.
But can maybe art create a sense of home, or like also be something that makes people feel recognized?
I would say that art somehow. Let me think about it. When it comes to the idea of sense of home, I think art creates is like if it's a sense of home is something that you feel safe. Like I feel safe at home, or maybe not. Like everyone feels safe at home too, but like the fact that it's okay. Like the fact that it's like someone's telling you that, oh, it's actually okay, like you can do it like that. Like even though this is totally different from our norms, this is not possible in real life, it's still okay in the form of art. In that case, maybe sometimes art is like a home where we could return to.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. But it's interesting because you said it's important on the one hand side, because here we go, we are back at these two sides. It's important to be recognized, but sometimes it can be problematic. At the Venice Biennale, countries represent art in a way that is nationally oriented. We have 86 national participations in the historic pavilions. Do you think this concept still makes sense in an interconnected world and with interconnected societies? Is this still contemporary from your point of view?
I would say that it depends very much on how to use it. Like, for example, maybe I cannot give very solid like examples, but like let's say some national pavilion. Of course, they represent the country. The country's name is over there. But then I sometimes see curators and artists, they recognize it. They recognize that, as you mentioned, like how the society is like interconnected. We're living in a world. It's sometimes also even hard to just say, like, where are you from? And then like my father's from here, my mother's from here, my grandfather. It's sometimes also very difficult to even say that. But I see some pavilions, they are working also with, let's say, artists who are, maybe they were not born in that country, but they live in that country for a long time, or maybe even artists who are not working from the particular country, but their works are connected to particular, it could be historical context or exchange or culture. So somehow, like, it's very much of a question that, like, I'm not even, I don't know, I don't even think too much about this question. I think one should think, of course, I think it's a question that one should still think about, like the existence of nations, between being recognized or just dividing as a means of only dividing. And like what kind of, what will be contemporary? Also contemporary, does that mean this, it could be, it's a better place for people. And like I did a work actually called, it's a series of work called Leaderless, and where I was imagining a artistic political party kind of promoting the idea of having no leader and at the same time coming from no countries. So like it was a journey developing the project, because it has a lot of struggles between, let's say, the idea of how power is being centralized in nations, but at the same time, when we try to decentralize it, how does it work? That's why in the context of the biennial is very much depending on how people use it. I think some people definitely would use it to like, oh, this is all about our nation. But there are also people who are working more on the topics to see the plurality in our society.
So there is a lot to be discovered at the Venice Biennial, and especially your work at the Arsenale. Thank you so much, Isaac Chong Wai, for your time, for the interview, for being with us today.
Thank you very much. It was great talking to you.
If you enjoyed the podcast, please feel free to recommend this episode to others. And if you would like to find out more about biennials and the art world, I recommend 2 episodes. Last year, we spoke to Paula Nascimento about the art of curating. And in the series Kulturmittler innen Deep Dive, we spoke to curator Melanie Fiedmeier about the political dimensions of biennials. You can find these and all other episodes on our website, ifa.de, or wherever good podcasts are available, for example, Spotify, Deezer, or Apple Podcasts. And you can also subscribe to the Kulturmittler innen there so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. You can find out even more about IFA, the IFA Gallery, and our projects on our website and our social media channels. You can find our profile on Instagram with the handle @ifa.de and on LinkedIn as IFA Institut für Auslandsbeziehungen. If you have any questions or comments about the KulturmittlerInnen, please send us an email to podcast@ifa.de. With this, I say goodbye. My name is Amira El Al. Thank you for listening and see you next time.